Today, I want to talk to you about something that lies at the very heart of personal growth, leadership, and meaningful connection: confidence through communication. We often think of confidence as something people are born with, a natural charisma or fearlessness. But confidence isn't a gift, it's a skill, and communication is the tool we use to build it. Every time you speak, whether it's to a friend, a colleague, a stranger, or even to yourself, you're shaping your identity and influencing your world. The way we express ourselves determines not only how others see us, but how we see ourselves. But let me be clear. Communication isn't just about being loud or eloquent. It's about being authentic, present, and clear. It's about listening as much as speaking. And when you master that, your confidence soars, not because you're trying to impress others, but because you're finally in tune with your own voice. Your inner power doesn't come from being perfect. It comes from showing up, being real, and speaking your truth, especially when it's hard. Imagine walking into a room and knowing that your voice matters. Imagine speaking up, not out of fear or ego, but out of purpose. That's what communication gives you, the power to connect, influence, and lead. So if you're holding back your voice, you're also holding back your potential. Step into your story, share your ideas, ask questions, speak up even when your voice shakes. The more you do it, the stronger you become. Your words have power, and through them, so do you. Confidence is not born, it's built through repeated expression. Many people believe confidence is something you either have or you don't, a fixed trait like eye color or height. But that's one of the biggest myths about self-belief. Confidence is not a genetic gift bestowed upon the lucky. It is a learned behavior, a habit that is formed and strengthened over time. And the most powerful way to build it is through consistent, deliberate communication. Think about a child learning to speak. They start with a few awkward sounds, some stumbles, lots of mistakes. But with encouragement, practice, and the courage to keep trying, they eventually form words, then sentences, then entire conversations. Their voice literally shapes their confidence. It's no different for adults. We are constantly evolving through how we express ourselves. Each time you speak up in a meeting, introduce yourself to someone new, or share your opinion, even if your voice shakes, you are telling yourself, I have value. You're teaching your brain that it's okay to be seen and heard. And that repetition creates emotional muscle memory. The more you do it, the stronger your inner belief becomes. And here's something profound. Confidence isn't about getting it right every time. It's about being willing to show up, to make mistakes, and to keep communicating anyway. When you start viewing communication as a skill to be sharpened, not a performance to be perfected, you free yourself from the fear of judgment. You stop waiting for permission to be confident and begin claiming it through your own voice. This process might feel uncomfortable at first, but like going to the gym, the discomfort is part of the growth. Every time you communicate with honesty, clarity, and courage, even when you feel unsure, you are literally building the foundation of your confidence. It becomes less about a do they like me, and more about am I proud of how I showed up. And that shift is powerful. Your voice is a tool, and how you use it shapes your identity. We often underestimate the power of our own voice. We think of speaking as a simple exchange of words, something automatic, almost thoughtless. But your voice, the words you choose, the tone you use, the confidence behind your message is one of the most powerful tools you will ever own. It is not just a method of communication. It is a mirror that reflects your beliefs, values, and sense of self. How you speak to others, and especially how you speak to yourself, directly impacts your identity. If you constantly downplay your ideas, speak hesitantly, or avoid expressing how you really feel, you start to internalize those behaviors. You begin to see yourself as someone who isn't worth being heard. And that belief starts shaping your actions, your opportunities, even your self-worth. But here's the truth. Every time you use your voice with intention, you are actively participating in the creation of your identity. You're not just conveying information, you're telling the world who you are, what you stand for, and what matters to you. When you speak from a place of authenticity and self-respect, your voice becomes a declaration. I am here, I matter, I have something to say. Think of your voice like an instrument. If you never pick it up, it stays silent and out of tune. But the more you use it in conversations and storytelling and standing up for yourself or others, the more precise, strong, and confident it becomes. You don't have to sound like anyone else. In fact, your greatest power lies in sounding exactly like you. And this goes beyond just speaking aloud. Your written words, your body language, your tone, all of these are part of your communication toolbox. When aligned with your values, they become an extension of your personal power. They allow you to connect with others in meaningful ways and create a presence that people remember, not because you were loud, but because you were real. Let's also not forget that your voice influences not just how others perceive you, but how you perceive yourself. When you begin to communicate with clarity, assertiveness, and integrity, you start reinforcing a more empowered self-image. You begin to realize that your voice is not something you need to find. It's something you need to trust. Authenticity is the foundation of powerful communication in a world that constantly pushes us to perform, compare, and conform. Authenticity can feel like a risk. We're often tempted to filter ourselves, to say what we think others want to hear, to hide our true feelings, or to adopt a persona we believe will be more accepted. But the most impactful and lasting form of communication doesn't come from imitation. It comes from truth. It comes from truth. And that truth is your authenticity. Authentic communication means speaking from a place of honesty, integrity, and self-awareness. It means allowing your words, tone, and body language to reflect who you really are, not who you think you're supposed to be. When you speak authentically, you are not performing, you are connecting. You're creating space for real understanding, empathy, and trust, all of which are the cornerstones of powerful relationships and strong leadership. People can sense authenticity. They may not always articulate it, but they can feel it. There's something magnetic about someone who is unapologetically themselves, someone who isn't afraid to say, "I don't know," or "this matters to me," or even "I made a mistake." In that mistake, that level of openness doesn't signal weakness. On the contrary, it shows courage, vulnerability, and confidence in its rawest form. Authentic communication also requires self-reflection. You can't express who you are unless you're willing to know who you are. That means tuning into your values, your purpose, and your emotional truth. It means asking yourself, what do I really want to say? What do I stand for? What matters most in this moment? The more you practice this internal alignment, the more naturally your external communication begins to reflect it. And perhaps most importantly, authenticity gives you freedom. You no longer feel the pressure to constantly prove yourself or play roles that drain you. Instead, you begin to realize that your uniqueness, your story, your voice, your flaws and strengths is not something to be hidden, but something to be embraced. When you speak from that space, you don't just gain respect. You inspire others to do the same. Authenticity doesn't mean being unfiltered or saying everything that crosses your mind. It means being intentional and honest, communicating in a way that's true to your identity while still being thoughtful and respectful to others. It means showing up fully, not as a version of you, but as you. But here's a liberating truth. Everyone feels this fear. Even the most confident communicators, the leaders, the speakers, the storytellers have battled it. The difference is they've learned how to move through it rather than be stopped by it. They've realized that fear of judgment is a mental cage, and that cage is only as strong as the power you give it. The fear of judgment is rooted in our desire to belong. We are social creatures wired for connection, and rejection can feel like a threat to our identity. But when we allow the possibility of criticism to control our expression, we trade authenticity for approval, and that is a steep price. Because in trying to please everyone, we end up hiding ourselves, and in doing so, we silence our unique voice. To unlock your voice, and by extension, your confidence, you must learn to detach your self-worth from other people's opinions. That doesn't mean becoming arrogant or dismissive. It means understanding that feedback is information, not identity. Someone else's opinion of you does not define your value. Your voice, your perspective, your truth has worth regardless of how it is received. Think about how much potential has gone unheard simply because someone was afraid of being misunderstood or disliked. Ideas unspoken, questions unasked, stories untold. The world doesn't need more perfection. It needs more honesty. And that only happens when people are brave enough to speak even while afraid. One powerful way to overcome the fear of judgment is to reframe it. Instead of seeing communication as a performance, view it as a contribution. You're not speaking to impress, you're speaking to connect, to share, to serve. That shift in mindset moves you out of self-consciousness and into purpose. Suddenly, your focus isn't on how you're being perceived, but on what you're offering. And when your intention is aligned with your values, confidence flows more naturally. Another essential practice is compassion for yourself. You will stumble, you will say things awkwardly. You may even face criticism, but that's part of the process. Confidence doesn't mean you never mess up. It means you're willing to show up anyway, knowing that your growth is more important than your comfort. Every time you speak in spite of fear, you reclaim a little more of your voice. You build a deeper sense of trust in yourself. Also, remember this. Most people are far too focused on their own insecurities to judge you as harshly as you imagine. We all walk into conversations with our own fears and flaws. And when you show up with courage and vulnerability, you give others permission to do the same. That's the kind of communication that creates impact. Not polished perfection, but real human presence. So, step by step, voice by voice, begin to free yourself from the weight of judgment. Begin to speak not because you're certain you'll be praised, but because you know your voice deserves to be heard. And in doing so, you unlock a power that was never really gone. It was simply waiting for permission to rise. Nonverbal communication speaks volumes before you say a word. Long before you open your mouth, you are already communicating. Through your posture, your facial expressions, your eye contact, and even your silence, your body is constantly sending signals. This is the power of nonverbal communication, and it plays a crucial, often underestimated role in building confidence and connection. In fact, studies show that the majority of our communication is nonverbal. People form impressions of you based not just on what you say, but on how you carry yourself. The way you enter a room, the way you stand or sit, the energy you project, all of these things are cues others pick up on instantly. And perhaps even more importantly, they're cues that you pick up on too, and they're cues that you pick up on too. Your body language doesn't just influence how others perceive you, it shapes how you perceive yourself. Take posture, for example. When you stand tall, shoulders back with your chest open and head held high, your body is sending a signal of confidence, not just to others, but to your own brain. Research in neuroscience and psychology shows that certain physical positions can increase feelings of power and self-assurance. Conversely, slouching, crossing your arms tightly, or avoiding eye contact can reinforce feelings of insecurity and fear. Your body becomes a mirror of your inner state and also a tool for changing it. Eye contact is another nonverbal element that carries enormous weight. Looking someone in the eyes as you speak conveys presence, trust, and sincerity. It says, I see you and I'm not afraid to be seen. When you look away too often or avoid someone's gaze, it can signal discomfort or lack of confidence, even if your words are strong. Learning to maintain comfortable, respectful eye contact can transform how your message is received and how empowered you feel delivering it. Gestures, facial expressions, and tone of voice also add layers to your communication. A calm, steady voice suggests composure. A genuine smile fosters warmth. Open hand gestures indicate honesty and transparency. When your verbal message aligns with these nonverbal cues, your communication becomes congruent. It feels real, trustworthy, and compelling. When they're out of sync, people sense it. That disconnect creates confusion and weakens your credibility. But here's something critical. Nonverbal communication is not about performance or manipulation. It's not about forcing yourself to smile or faking confidence with exaggerated gestures. It's about becoming aware of the signals you're sending and aligning them with your true intent. It's about learning how to use your body and voice as tools to express clarity, authenticity, and presence. There's also an inward benefit. When you begin to own your space physically, you start feeling more grounded. You feel more capable. By adjusting your posture, your breathing, and your movement with intention, you anchor yourself in the present moment, which is where all confident communication lives. You move from reaction to response, from shrinking into the background to standing fully in your own power. And just like verbal skills, nonverbal communication can be practiced. You can rehearse standing confidently, making eye contact, using your hands to emphasize a point. You can watch recordings of yourself or practice in front of a mirror to become more attuned to your natural presence. Over time, these habits become instinctive, and your confidence becomes more visible even when you haven't spoken a word. Conclusion: speak to be seen, listen to empower, and communicate to transform. Confidence through communication isn't about being the loudest voice in the room. It's about being the most authentic, the most present, and the most present, and the most intentional. It's about understanding that your words matter, your presence matters, and your voice has the power to not only express who you are, but to shape who you become. Whether you're standing in front of a crowd, sharing your ideas in a meeting, or having a quiet conversation with a friend, every act of communication is a chance to build confidence, to connect with others on a deeper level, and to unlock the potential that already lives inside you. So stand tall. Speak with clarity, listen with your whole heart, and trust that your voice, exactly as it is enough. The world doesn't need perfection. It needs your truth, your courage, and your voice. Don't wait for permission. Start now. Unlock your power, one conversation at a time.